So, let me ask first, how many people in here have taken my membership class? 1, 2, 3. You guys were in it? You? Okay. So some of you have, there's some who haven't. And I know Jason, you and Amber were interested, so I told you this would count for it. We were talking, about different things. And I was saying, I needed to get going because I'd heard you all wanted one. And I said, I think there are probably people in the fellowship that have been here for quite a while already and have not gone through that because they were, I didn't start this until a few years ago. And so Betsy asked if I would do the service. So those of you who have been through the class, my apologies, but you'll get some updated information on all of this. And as you can see, it is a paper fest when I do this. One of the things I start off with, let me start with this, is I ask people first, how did you discover us? And how did you discover Unitarian Universalism? And for Randy and me, we started back in 1981. So we've been a member for 30-some years at this point, members of UU. I grew up Catholic, very strong Catholic. My family continues to be pretty active in that, at least my sister and my father are. Randy's family didn't attend church regularly. When you did go, you was Presbyterian. And at this point in our lives, we moved to Maine in 1980, and I had at this point had left the Catholic Church. I was just so annoyed with them about their stand on women. And it had been gone for several years, but having grown up in a family where spiritual practice was important, I really felt like there was a hole in my life. And someone where I was working suggested that we try out Unitarian Universalism. Now Portland has 2 churches, they're the 2 large UU churches, and we went first to her church. And I knew this was not going to work. When we walked into the church, it's called First Parish. It's a very old traditional UU church. They used to be a congregational church. And the first thing we see is the cross above the altar in there. And Randy starts growling. Literally. So the service itself was lovely, but I just knew this was not going to work. And I think, Betsy, you also had a more traditional UU, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And someone said, well, you might try checking out Allen Avenue, which was the other large UU church that had started a few years earlier, maybe 15 years earlier. So we went there and immediately felt at home, and both of us became pretty active in that UU church. In fact, we were leaving to come down here. As much as I love being here, I still do miss my Allen Avenue church, and I continue to have contact with people up there. It was just a great group. What spoke to me about UUism was the lack of insistence on a particular creed or a particular belief system. And as I say to people, I've got a husband who's an atheist, I'm an agnostic. It's hard to find a church that we can both fit into, and UU works for us. So people say, how can you be spiritual if you don't believe in God? I go, well, you do. I am. So I'm not sure I don't believe, but at least but having some spiritual connection and having a community, a faith community, is important to me as well. So let me ask anybody else who's kind of bold, how did you find, and then when we moved down here, this was the closest UU, so we came here. We came here on annual meeting Sunday in April, when there was, no surprise, a huge blow up. That was the time, Sebi, that Pam walked out because she was so upset about what was happening with George. But we came back. So, because we know you. Is anybody else comfortable with sharing? How did you find Unitarian Universalism?
I don't care. It's kind of a boring story. They were doing the coffee house back in the 90s, and I lived about 2 blocks over, and I was just looking for something to do, and a coffee house sounded cool. And there I was in my 20s, like, okay, that sounds neat. And so I came out, and I was nervous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you tend to think, oh my God, is it a cult? I don't know. And but it was just a bunch of cool people. I met Beverly and a bunch of people who aren't here anymore, and Detlef, who was actually living here at the time. And I guess I came to the coffee house a few times, and I saw this, and I was like, well, there's nothing in that I disagree with, you know. So I guess I just started eventually coming to the meetings and being very skeptical, but it was all cool. So.
Dave?
Well, we shopped around in these different churches around town and went to all the big ones, and, you know, small ones, and we joined UU in 2010, but the biggest thing was I would say Kelly. Kelly was what brought us in, you know.
Well, we came first and visited, George was here,
George
we didn't
was
come
here.
back for a very long time.
We'll talk about that a little bit, yeah.
Yeah,
But,
then when we came back, Kelly was doing the services, and she was pretty good there to start, and then she got lazy and
Yeah.
very unsatisfactory.
But you know, you come in and everybody'd give you a big hug. Evelyn, she'd grab me and hug me up, you know. And I said, hey, this is nice, you know. I don't even know this chick, you know. These hugs, you know. I said, hey, I'm married, you know. Hey. But Al was here, and Tom and Bev were here, and just a lot of things going on, you know. You guys, you, Randy, and April, especially April, you know. But we felt at home right then, you know.
There's something I wanted to add to my thing that I shared. It's kind of an important aspect, I think. It was just that when I came here, I actually, for the first time in my life, met other people that I felt more of a connection with than other people I had ever met in the community. So that was a big turning point for me.
My best friend in Texas was a lifelong Unitarian, and she vexed me for months. She would not leave me alone. You have to come, you're going to love it. I'm going, oh, Laura Lee, stuff it. And so she was vexing me at DQ again one day. I said, okay, let's make a pact. I will go, and if I don't like it, you'll leave me alone. And she was very smug and very self-confident. She said, deal. So I wandered in and I stayed.
Yeah.
Here? Was it here
It
or
was Texas. It was in Texas.
Yvonne, you had your hand up?
Yes, Gavin and I were going to Pipestem State Park for swimming twice a week, and we crossed paths with Al Newman's, whom we didn't really know. And he said, what is this about Wicca that I associate with your name? So we kind of told him, and he says, hey, come and tell my congregation about your beliefs, your package of beliefs. And so we went and did a intro commercial one Sunday 10 years ago, easily, I think. And the rest is history. As a recovering Baptist, I can be here and not squirm.
That's right. I think I don't know if anybody's ever taken a study, but I think probably most of the adults who are in UUism come actually from other faith beliefs. And there are still a growing number of children, but I don't, you know, and I've met lifelong Unitarians. In fact, we had a family at Island Avenue they were 3 generations of Unitarian Universalism. But, yeah, I think most of us have come here from other places and find a home here. Anybody else want to share? Or?
Sure. In addition to what Cathy said, I was a teacher for some years. I contributed to the science of psychology. I ran experiments with rats and people.
And that's why he likes us.
Yeah. And even when I was a young teenager, very young teenager, like 11 or 13, and I was still in Sunday school, and they were telling, this is a Presbyterian church, they were telling about Jonah and the whale, and Jesus and his birth, and God came down, and I thought, my God, how can they believe that? How can they believe that? Now, the people in the Presbyterian church were good people, and I have nothing to say bad about them. And they did a lot of good in their community. But that, how can they believe? Oh, as I got into my profession and into my science, I said, hey, empiricism is important, and it provides many, many answers. It can't answer the ultimate questions, why are we here? Except I did last time, because my parents had sex. Well, why was I here? But we began attending a UU, and I found individual people had ideas, and they were contributing, and there wasn't a putting down of those individual ideas. There was instead an interest, a celebration in different points of view, and it was exciting and interesting and enticing, and I still enjoy the interchange of ideas. And I'm not spiritual except in the sense of what? Some awe at the comprehensiveness of the universe. But I do enjoy the comradeship of people who can respect each other and don't say, I respect you, but you must believe in this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the beauty of the UU. I respect you, and you don't have to believe. I don't sing songs here, and I frequently don't join in recitations, in part because I am so much of an individualist that I don't like the idea that I'm confirming absolutely a belief in these words.
And because you have ODD.
Yeah. So, at any rate, Kate.
Will you come to the Vietnam Veterans meeting with me?
Yes.
Yes, I will.
And we'll sit
Yeah.
together in
Okay.
the
Okay.
Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay. I will try and make. Yes. So, kind of long-winded. I hope you didn't mind my going on a bit, but that's my contribution.
Well, I think each of us have a different story, and I think we all have some streak of individuality, or else we'd be in the Baptist or the Methodist churches or one of the other churches that's, more of a traditional faith outlook. But I do think, it's a very vibrant, active community here and nationwide, and I'm really glad that we're here. I don't know if people who don't know much of the history, and you guys, Jason, you and Amber have missed some of the history of UUs and we've talked just briefly. This does come out of a traditional faith path, a traditional Christian faith path. In particular, the Congregationalists. You know more of that than I do. And they tend to be more in New England area. At some point, and the United Church of Christ, there's kind of sister groups that we have a lot of closeness with. But at some point, there must have been some split between the Congregationalists and the Unitarians, because things shifted. That Unitarianism became its own faith path, and the Unitarian Christian faith did not believe in the aspect of God in three personas, Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. They believed in a unity God, one God. And I have a note here that there was an American Unitarian Association that was established in 1825. So the fact that it took, they had even a national association in 1825 tells me that they'd been doing this for quite some time before that. At some point, they're also I think this was even more of a southern kind of thing. The Universalist organizations, faith paths, began to spring up. Universalists were Christians who did not believe in hell, did not believe that a loving God would consign people's souls to hell. And both groups were very active in social justice issues over the years, worked together a lot over the years. And somewhere around the early to mid-1900s, they began to talk about merging. And that went for quite some time, but they did finally merge in 1961 and became the Unitarian Universalist Association. That's why when somebody asked me for an elevator speech, I said, well, traditionally what it means is one God, no hell. That's the meaning of Unitarian Universalism. But I also add that we've kind of come a long way from that. And in fact, there are many subgroups under UUA, Unitarian Universalist Association, which is our national association. Randy and I belong to the UU Humanist Association. There's a pagan group, Coven of UU Pagans. There's
Certainly a Christian subgroup too.
there's a Christian subgroup, Unitarian Universalist for Jewish awareness, Unitarian Universalist for polyamory awareness. We have a very active social justice subgroup called Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. And in fact, that reminds me, I need to talk about guest at your table on there. There's a youth group, Young Religious Unitarian Universalists, that are very active and do a lot of things. They did a lot of things when we were General Assembly. So whatever your interest is, if you check the UUA website, you can probably find some group that's already gotten started that they'd want you to be involved with. Sebby.
I also found out that there is for Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, they have part of their thing that they do every year once you get to a certain age is they require the kids to do a section on religious studies. And there's a UUA option. There's a Unitarian option.
Yay.
For
They
a
have
pin.
a badge.
A pin.
For,
A badge.
it's a badge for your faith. Many faiths are represented,
Yeah.
and you can earn a badge in Boy Scouts.
Yeah, I was surprised to find that out. So, I mean, I was like, oh, so I won't be able to participate in that at all. But it turns out.
You can.
Yeah, we travel with that, right? With the little ones.
Yeah. Well, not only are UUs here in the United States, and I would tell you, as of 2016, in the United States, we had 1,038 churches and 154,965 adult members, 44,885 RE students enrolled in RE, for total membership, I'm just going to say 200,000 people here in the United States. But there are also Unitarian Universalist churches in other countries. Randy, I don't know if you were with me, I think I just went. I went to a UU service in Paris. And I always check when we've traveled to see if there's a UU church around somewhere. They're in the Philippines. There's a group in Canada. They used to be affiliated with UUA, but they've broken off and they're their own UU association now. They started in 2002. There are 17 member countries who make up the International Council of Unitarians and Universalists. And last count, I heard, was around the world, there are about 800,000 UUs. So about 200,000 in this country, many of whom are in the New England area, I will say. They got, and there are a lot in California, I think, too. But about 800,000 around the world. So when you start to feel like we're kind of out here by ourselves, we're really not.
There's like 4 or 5 huge UU congregations in Houston.
Right, yeah. And like I said, Portland had 2 ones, and there was one in Freeport and Yarmouth and Kennebunk. I mean, all within, there were probably another 10 churches in 50-mile radius of Greater Portland, so. Okay, so that's how Unitarian Universalists developed and kind of came along. You have the Gathering Covenant that Bev wrote. There's also in the packet that's had the Gathering Covenant, there's a nice little article by Polly Laughlin Guild about on becoming a member. And the themes that she talks about, I think of a lot of things we've kind of shared already. If you're looking for, I'm not going to read the whole list, if you're looking for a church where your doubts are not ridiculed, your guilts are lightened, your griefs are comforted, your joys are celebrated. And I just think, you know, and she goes on with that. It's a lovely little article if you have a chance to read it. And I also gave you a little handout about the UUA organization, the national organization. Susan Frederick Gray is our current president, and Beth Casebolt is our regional contact. The country as a whole is divided into 5 regions at this point, and Beth is our regional contact person in that region. Every year there is, for lack of a better word, a convention that we have in different places. Betsy and April and I went to the one in New Orleans last year and this year, and then we went to the one in Columbus, Ohio last year. And I'm looking to go to Kansas City, April and Betsy, this coming June. And if anybody else is interested, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to see a lot of other UUs. They have a couple of services, and it's so neat. Everybody walks in with their banners, and you get a real sense of the different flavors of the UU group. And they have a lot of good workshops and that kind of thing.
Can I get an extra one of these, this packet?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Let me talk a little bit about this particular UU. The UUA, remember, was founded in 1961. As best we can tell, this group started in about 1968.
Wow.
So we were one of probably the earliest UU congregations in the country, I think. The story goes that some people started meeting in the newspaper office down here with Jim Haught, who's been here as a speaker a couple of times, and some other people. Bev and Tom got involved very early on. And at some point, not too long after they'd been getting together, they realized they needed more space. And I don't know how. I think someone was able to sell them this house at a pretty low rate. And as well, they left some other pieces of property been left to us over the years, most recently Al Yeoman's house. So people have been very generous and very supportive of this organization over the year, which we still are very appreciative of. But if you think, you know, we've been going about since 1968, so that's 40 some years, almost 50 years. We're going to have a 50-year anniversary celebration. The number of people living that come here have kind of comes and goes. Sometimes we've had many more, sometimes we've had fewer. I know in my time here, on our 10 years here, there have been a couple of occasions where it's been kind of going, are we going to be able to continue? Or going, we're going to continue even if Randy and I are the only ones showing up here for a while. Detlef has stayed here, lived here for a while, other people have lived here. We're not zoned really for people living here, and I'm saying we kind of need to hold back on encouraging anybody to do that, because I don't want, you know.
It always seems to end badly too.
It always seems to end badly. The last one who really lived here was Kelly Kaufman, who we hired as a minister for a while. And as Deb said, she started out really well, and part of her payment was that she was able to live here, and then things went downhill.
And for a while, we had 27 people in regular attendance, and at that point, because of the parking limitations, we started questioning whether or not we needed to move to a larger location.
Right.
But as we hold on, then the numbers drop off again. So
Yeah, and then start building up again.
It's ebb and flow.
Ebbs and flows. I do want to mention, in case anybody happens to be saying to anybody in Beckley, one of the former ministers here was a man named George Exo.
Mm-hmm.
When he started, he was a Unitarian Universalist accredited minister. However, George and the UUA came to a parting of the ways, in part because of his beliefs. George believed in assisted suicide and was actively promoting that, was actively involved in helping people with that. I believe that in principle, but I really believe in medical involvement personally, and I told this to George, and George did not include people with medical oversight, which really bothered me. And also received money for it, which really bothered a lot of people.
Yes.
At some point, the UUA,
The big problem with George was not that he was accepting money from a few people. You know, he would travel to Ireland or wherever. He traveled a great distance and would spend several weeks with people at times. And I thought that was a real gift.
yes,
The real problem was that he wanted to have the money funneled through the UU
well, I haven't gotten
so
there yet.
that he didn't have to pay any taxes.
I haven't gotten to that point yet. Hold on a minute.
And
You can Google him.
No.
So,
people, all
let me-
people have their good side and their bad.
yes, and he was a very educated man and
Yeah.
very charming in many ways. The
Oh.
UUA disenfranchised George as a minister, and let me tell you, for the UUA to turn off the credentials for somebody, you've got to be pretty out there. Because I'm sorry, we're pretty accepting of everybody. They continue to have him here as the minister, even when he lost his UUA accreditation. But it did develop a major schism in the fellowship here. And as Randy said, the day we arrived, there was a huge uproar. George at that time had been told that he was not going to be able to be continued here. There was a question of the money being funneled through here. Tom and Bev were good friends, and some people wound up leaving.
He went to prison, didn't he?
No, I don't think he ever went
He
to prison.
was.
Did he?
He was for a while.
For a little while, but not.
Yeah, they
and
wanted to extradite him to Ireland.
They wanted to extradite him to Ireland and he never got extradited. I know that.
And just as a quick aside, I mean, is there any way we can actually remove his name from that sign?
We probably should. That would be
I
good.
painted over one
You
time.
can still see it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still visible.
Is it on the
We'll
bottom
just
of
take
the
it
back?
as.
Yeah. Then we
I
need to-
visited George in jail,
Yeah.
and he was being considered for extradition, and finally it was decided that our laws didn't require extradition for his offense.
Yeah. Okay, that's true.
So,
Okay.
I do want to point out, and Cathy, you may have been going there, that in George's last days,
Yes.
we did reach out to him. He reached out, or we learned of his condition, and we did provide round-the-clock care for George.
Yeah,
Yes.
for someone who encouraged assisted suicide for others, he did not do it for
He
himself.
didn't want it for himself.
yeah.
But one of the reason I bring up George in every membership class is because there's still a reputation in this town.
Yes.
George still has, and people are very concerned that this is a cult or that
Right.
we're. And if anyone ever says anything to you, please let them know George has not been affiliated with this for years.
And that's the only reason I wanna get that, really
Yeah.
scrubbed.
No,
from
you're right.
that.
It should be
So we'll
off.
talk about it for
Yeah.
the.
Probably should just pry it off the.
It looks kinda tacky anyway.
Yeah.
He was a brilliant man, and he did a lot of good. He
Yes,
really
he
did a
did.
lot of good. But he did things that others wouldn't do. You know,
Right.
as a UU minister, he was handing out prophylactics to high school students, and it's like, what? And that was kind of a good thing, but
That's a good thing.
it was something that was atypical and unusual.
Yes, Joe.
There's also been stuff said about our family's attendance here, and has been said frequently enough for people to report it back to me. Isn't that the church where the witches go? Why would we go to a church where there's devil worshipers, etc.? So I don't know if we ever need to say something publicly about that, but it has been said enough that it's gotten back to me, even in a town of 14,000.
Yeah.
So that's the reputation now. I've not heard chatter in the community about George like I have about.
And it's been 10 years. I mean, I say
Right.
to Bev and Tom, I always said to Bev and Tom, Randy and I represented life after George
Yeah.
because we came after George had left.
Yeah, well, and I did too. I'm not sure Mom and Dad did, but I did too.
Yeah.
So Stubby.
It isn't the time to go into it, but the things I have heard regarding that have nothing to do with all that. It has to do with those books, the old book.
Well, Mom's not gonna take
So-
any accountability for that.
So, I'm just saying, if we need to say anything about it, it needs to cover that stuff. but
Well-
that's for another time.
And I
Well, they
think,
wouldn't come here anyway, so.
They're not gonna come here anyway.
Right, you're just throwing down an excuse.
yeah, so
I've
I'm just
had-
saying.
I've had to defend myself.
I'm just saying, I do mention a membership class about George, because I just think it's important to say, if you hear anything, we're not a cult, we welcome people, we don't brainwash people, we don't devil worship, any of that stuff. So, and invite them to come and see for themselves.
However, we could discuss devil worship, and there's nothing wrong with discussing it.
Can I make a quick
I
statement
like
on
the
that stuff?
Satanists
Yeah.
myself.
Because when, I
They're
have
they're
had
much
to talk to
better group of
people
than the Christians.
about what we believe,
Mm-hmm.
and I always just tell people that we don't have any particular
Right.
spiritual focus other than the principles
Right,
that we hold in
Right.
They
common.
don't care.
I know they don't care, but that's, I just,
They already got their preconceived notions.
maybe some people care, I'm not gonna say they don't care, some people care. Some
Well,
people are-
unless I
do have
run across in these groups, they don't care.
Oh, the
They
groups.
want you to believe like they believe, or you're just of the devil, and I think they're ignorant, and I don't really care either
Well,
about
I
them.
talked to one of the administrative assistants on campus the other day, and her father, who died about 3 years ago, was their pastor in a very conservative church. And this woman was asking me, about UU, and I told her, she goes, "That sounds really interesting. That's something that I want to learn more about." And she's a very quiet, unassuming person. And I would have expected her to be of a different bent.
yeah, sometimes people surprise you.
Yeah.
To continue to talk about this particular fellowship, one of the things I handed out was an address list of the current membership and people that are kind of family, even not current members on there. And I also gave you a list of the current officers and members of the board and the trustees here at this time. And there's some useful websites like UUA and the Central East Region and our Facebook page and our website page. I would hope all of you at this time have gone to our website, catch up on the calendar, which Joe and I try to keep updated and all of that. One of the things we had, every April, the third Sunday in April is annual meeting Sunday. And at that point, we elect new officers and I present the annual report and the budget and all that kind of stuff.
What is the NV and NV?
That means
Non-voting.
non-voting.
Okay, didn't explain it.
Yeah, sorry, non-voting. There are people that haven't officially resigned, but I'm not really considering them voting members at this point. They're not considered voting members on the vote. And one of the major tasks for the annual meeting is passing the budget. And that's people who are active members get to vote at the annual meeting, and that's a real advantage of membership. You get to take real active part in how we manage things. We are lay-led, obviously. We do not have a minister, and everybody here is part of the ministry. There was a quote I heard about Quakerism, which I think applies to us as well, because, Quakers do not have ministers. And somebody said, oh, they got rid of the ministers. And the response is, no, Quakers got rid of the lay people. Everybody's a minister, and I think that's true for us as well.
Wow, that's cool.
That's a powerful statement.
It is a powerful statement. And that is us. So please, those of us who are active members, we all have a responsibility to be involved and take care of things. This is the budget. I gave you at the time that we passed this budget, we passed in April for the upcoming July to June fiscal year. So the column on the left is what I was proposing as the fiscal year budget, which was passed at the past annual meeting. And the column on the right is what the budget was for the meeting purpose, so people would kind of get some sense of where that was, what we voted on the past year as the budget. And then what I also have a column, but I didn't do it for today, is I'll give you a list of the actual expenses. So people will have that as we're judging the budgets and trying to figure out what we're doing. And board members are very familiar with this. There's also a copy of the latest treasurer's report that I give to the board in that packet. The opening balance, different sources of income, different sources of expenses. We have what I call reserves, that is every month I set aside a little pocket of money for some categories, and then we dip out of that pocket for, charity, maintenance, that kind of thing.
What's fidelity?
Fidelity is, we have some money market savings, and they're in Fidelity investments, so we have about 19,000 in there.
For RE?
RE is that's a different thing. The 19,358 is what we have in Fidelity savings. RE is, remember I said that we have these pockets. I have this in my head. I like walk around with this apron that's the UU money, and I have little pockets in all the apron.
Thank God it's you.
Yeah, one of the pockets is, Bev and Tom Kinraid have been extremely generous to us over the years.
Right.
And they are very supportive of having an RE program, strongly believe that that's an important aspect for the church to grow. And they have given us money over the years to pay for the RE program because we did not have it
Right.
until we recently sold this house that Al Yeomans left us. So we have at this point still $7,000 left in the RE budget that's sitting in a little pocket in my head in the checking account there. And membership meals is, sometimes we were going out for lunch on the first Sunday of the month, and some members would like to come, but maybe didn't have the financial resources for that at that point. So some of us created another pocket that we put money in, and that would let us take people out for lunch if they wanted to come and just couldn't afford it.
So I guess my question, which I don't think you answered, was why is the 19,000 something in the RE column?
It's not, it's not, that's why it's got the little box around it,
Okay,
because it's separate. I'm just trying to
Thank you.
throw things on the bottom of the page, and it's
Thank you.
separate. No, the box means it's not there, it's in a
Yeah.
whole different account, I don't have so,
Save the page.
save it, yeah.
Yeah.
So at this point, we're 33% along the year. I'll talk about this more at the board meeting. We've taken in 24% of what we budgeted for income, and we have spent 30% of what we spent of the budgeted things. Now, we've certainly had some expenses, the sanctuary repair expenses, we did not budget in April. And because we didn't have any money in April. And then we got this good sum of money in when we sold Al's house. Al Yeomans was the president for a long time, was very active, and when he passed a few years ago, he left us his house in the will. And we recently were able to sell it, so that's why we've got a little cushion here. So once we got some money coming in, we did really need to make some repairs in this fellowship house, and upgraded the electrical and dealt with the windows, so we've got better insulation and that kind of thing.
where is Al? He's gone.
He should be here. Yeah, where is he?
Yeah, there's a picture of him.
Nope.
It's
In the
not
back on the
It's
far
probably
side.
in the RE room.
It's on, he's a frame in the back. Sky, can you pull out that picture of Al back there?
Is he in the corner?
Yeah,
Back in the corner.
on the right.
Oh, okay.
Right here?
Yeah.
And
Poor Julie.
Pull it out, because Jason and I haven't seen him.
Poor Al, he's back in the corner where nobody can get.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you have any questions on the budget, I'll be glad to answer, but let Chumley catch me afterwards, because I want to keep going. But I just want people to have a copy of that as well. Like I said, this is paper some time thing. One thing I forgot to pass out, if you don't want it, feel free to give it back to me, but I'll order more. I did order some of these. These are things that I also give out as membership classes. It's a little welcome booklet, Welcome to the UUA. And it talks about the principles and, what UUism is all about. It's a nice little book.
Anybody else?
Let me talk about becoming a member in one other aspect. We ask that if you become a member, you contribute here with time, talent, or treasure. Now, as the treasurer, I like it when people contribute money. This building does take money to run. We have to keep the lights on, we have to keep the heat going, we need money coming in. However, we are very, very strongly believing that we don't want anybody to feel that if they can't give us enough financial support, that they shouldn't come. We are grateful for anything that anybody is able to give. And if you're not able to do financially what you wish you could, then give us something, lead a service, get involved, you know, lead a service, help us with the meals, help with the cleaning, task list that April came up with.
Could we
All-
say and or?
And or, all, yes, it does say on my list, responsibilities, time, talent, and or treasure. So we gladly accept any financial contributions, but please don't ever feel that you have to do a certain amount to be a real member here. That's not how we work. We work that everybody's involved. What we, you know, even if you just come and sit on a Sunday, if that's what you can do, then that's okay. What we don't want, and this is why I started the membership class in the first place, people would come, they'd sign the membership books, and we'd never see them again. They'd never come back in the doorway again. That's what we don't want. We want you to be thoughtful about signing the membership book, but we really want you to stay involved. And for a while I was talking, I think it was with Molly I was talking about, and she was saying she felt like if she signed the book that would mean she wouldn't come back. And I said to her, well, then don't sign the book. Because I'd rather have you showing up than feel pressure about having to come. It's really okay if you don't come every Sunday. That's okay. Come when you can. Do what you can. And she, you know, and she did sign, and she is staying involved as she's able to, and that's okay. We just don't want people to disappear. So that's part of why I had the membership class, started doing a membership class, was to kind of, because I think sometimes people would sign the book not realizing what it entails. Now I will say, when you sign a membership book, and again, I'm not saying this is any kind of financial pressure, when you sign the membership book, we as a whole congregation then we pay dues on your behalf to the UUA and to Central East Region, because they need money to operate as well. They have their electricity and their mailings and all that stuff to deal with, and their staff. They have tried to streamline their operation, so we used to have 17 districts, and we were part of the Ohio Meadville District, and part of the reason we're down to 5 is they realized they could accomplish the same kind of stuff if they consolidated some things. So they're trying to reduce their expenses. They recognize the congregations are struggling, but they still need some money. But believe me, we get more than enough in from everybody that paying what we need to pay is not a problem. You know, we don't pay the entire amount that they would like to have us pay, but we pay at least a reasonable amount. I'm hoping at some point we can get back to paying what they would like us to pay, but that's another topic. So, I mean, it's not that you owe that on, you know, that amount. UUA wants $60 a year, and CERG wants $27 a year. So it's not even that much. It's just per person. So it's not that much, but when you think about it, it's for the whole year. And April and I and anybody who's on the board will talk about, we get a lot of support from UUA, and we get a lot of support from CERG. And Beth was down here, for those of you who were here a few weeks ago, with giving a workshop, met with the board for that retreat for the whole weekend, came and did the service that Sunday, and we didn't pay her anything, you know, because she's our CERG contact. And the UUA does a lot. One of the things you'll get if you sign the membership book, I hope everybody's been getting it, because I try to keep up on this on list on the website, is there's a quarterly magazine that comes out called UU World.
It's wonderful.
That has some wonderful articles in it, and the church itself gets one. I try to keep it out there on the table out there. So, anyways, I mean, there's just a lot of things that go on. Okay. I think that's about it. Any questions so far?
When do we feast?
After I finish. But it's I think it's a really wonderful faith path to follow. I'm so glad that everybody's here, and I just hope that other people can find their way to getting to us, because I think we have something wonderful to offer. Join me in responsive reading 442 in the back of the book.
So we respond to what you keep saying with that. We don't choose how we respond to it.
Shush.
Nope. It's that PRESA convention that Randy was talking about. Oh, I forgot, there's also, I passed out copies of the bylaws too, so if anybody wants to have those. We bid you welcome, who come with weary spirit seeking rest.
who come with troubles that are too much with you, who come hurt and afraid,
We bid you welcome, who come with hope in your heart.
who come with anticipation in your step, who come proud and joyous,
We bid you welcome, who are seekers of a new faith.
who come to probe and explore, who come to learn,
We bid you welcome, who enter this hall as a homecoming.
who have found here room for your spirit, who find in this people a family.
Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your journey.
We bid you welcome.
I love that reading. I really do. And we're going to end with the runner-up for the on the contest. I don't know who did it. I guess the UUA did it. Of the most UU thing. And the winner was the chalice, the flaming chalice. But runner-up was Spirit of Life.
123.
123.
Or page 34 in the welcome book.
Oh, the little welcome book, page 34.
Yeah.
Either one. Like I said,
I
it's
know
a
that
very
it's time
UU
to do
thing.
it. Not yet?
Not yet.
Ah.
Are you ready?
Yeah, and that's number 3.